Welcome to the Go One More Step podcast. I'm Brian White. I'm a veteran, I'm a survivor of my brother's suicide, and I'm talking to people about overcoming challenges of all kinds.
And welcome. How you doing today?
All right. How's it going with you, Brian? Good to see you.
Good. It's good. Glad to have you on. So we're here with Gordon Sumner, Sumner, the president and CEO of Veterans Moving Forward, which is a Northern Virginia-based nonprofit providing service dogs to veterans in need. And with that, I'll let you kind of take it away with what you do and who you help and how.
Well, thank you, Brian, and good morning or good afternoon to all your listeners, depending upon where they're located. But we really appreciate what's going on with our organization, having the opportunity to share our stories. So what Veterans Moving Forward is we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we do is we provide service dogs to veterans that are dealing with any physical or mental challenges at absolutely no cost to the veteran or their family. And we do this nationwide. So we place our dogs all across the United States, not just in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where our training center is located.
Cool. And how long has Veterans Moving Forward been operating?
We've been in action since 2010, so about 12 and a half years now. September of this year will be our 13th anniversary.
Wow. Good for you.
So we've been around for a while.
Yeah. Now, president and CEO, are you also the founder?
No, I'm not the founder. There are two co-founders, Karen Jeffries, who's a retired Navy commander, and a friend of hers, Bob Larson, who worked on Wall Street. And they had this concept of a service dog nonprofit for veterans, but didn't have any particular caveats. And the reason they had this idea was because back then, and even still today, there are some nonprofits that will tell you that they provide service dogs to veterans, but there's a niche that you have to meet. For example, there's some organizations that you have to be a particular military branch to get a dog. Like you have to be a Marine. If you're an Army guy like me, you're not going to get a dog from this organization. Some will say you have to be combat wounded to get a dog. Some say that you have to be a younger veteran, 9/11, OIF, OEF veteran. If you're a Vietnam guy, somebody my age, or Desert Shield, Desert Storm, you don't qualify for a dog. Some actually restrict their dogs to the state to where they're located. We've actually got a veteran who we're about to place a dog with this year who had been working with an organization in Oregon. They got moved to here because of the job. So he just assumed that the dog would be assigned to him later once he got settled here, and then went, no, as soon as you leave Oregon, we can't give you a dog. He has to stay in Oregon. So found us, and so we're going to be able to give him a service dog. So our requirements are real simple. One, you have to have served honorably, and we get that off your discharge papers, the DD 214. And then secondly, you have to have documentation from your primary care provider. And if you're under mental health, your mental health primary care provider as well, that they support your efforts to get a service dog. And that's it. Those are the only two requirements.
Cool. So what drives that very restrictive set of parameters with these other organizations?
Just because that's what they believe, that's what they want to do. They want to focus on their fellow service members, or they want to focus on the younger veterans who are coming through. And there's nothing wrong with it. Right. It's just that we have a lot more need. And I'll just give you an example. Right now, we're training at any one time 7 to 8 dogs in our training facility. That's because I only have 2 trainers, and we try to have a 4-to-1 training ratio. 5 I can get away with my head trainer, Katie, because she's got years of experience, so she can juggle 5 dogs at different stages of the dog's life. And we also only have room for 8 kennels. Yeah. So, so we're kind of done. So that means we're placing 3 or 4 dogs a year, maybe 5 this year if we're lucky. And even at that, I've got over 50 veterans on my wait list right now. So there is a definite need. And that's why I tell people we're not in competition with these other nonprofits, because there's such a need out there. I want all of us to be successful.
Right. Yeah. I don't think you're going to be competing for limited demand, especially with an aperture that wide. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Now, how did you get involved with the organization?
So, so the story is I'm retired Army, and I worked for a very small few years with a very small minority owned defense contracting business here in Northern Virginia. And then I had the opportunity to work for President Bush in his administration. And then I held over and worked for a short time in President Obama's administration under Secretary Gates there in the Pentagon. And when I left those jobs, I did not want to go into the defense contracting world. I
Right.
just did not want to get involved with the contracting side of it. So I thought, well, what is it that I like to do? So I originally thought I would start my own service disabled, veteran owned small business, or as I call it, veteran owned very, very, very small business, because it's just me.
Right.
And since I'm also a member of the Santee tribe, I could use the Native American hook to partner with other companies if they needed to buff up their disadvantaged business columns. So they could get me as a veteran, they could get me as a service disabled veteran, and they could get me as a Native American. So I thought, well, that'd be fun, especially if I could work with businesses that are owned by veterans or in support of veterans, something like that. But I got to be honest with you, I started doing that, and after a year or two, I wasn't happy. I mean, I was okay business wise, but the fulfillment part of it wasn't there. So my daughter, who's a lot smarter than I am, was home visiting, and we were sitting there talking, and we kind of had this discussion, and she made me think about, well, what is it that makes me happy? And I came to the realization a couple of weekends later after that visit that what really makes me happy, what I really like doing, is service. I've done that my whole life. I mean, I couldn't believe that I didn't figure that out earlier. I mean, from my church days, uh, being in the choir days, Boy Scouts, the Army, obviously serving our country, all those kind of things, working in nonprofits like my military nonprofits, the Veteran Service Organizations, my military Order of the Purple Heart organization, all those, everything was service oriented. So I thought, ditch the business and go to what I really enjoy doing, and that's being in and working around nonprofits. So I shifted my business model and got into supporting nonprofits. Shortly thereafter, I got a phone call from Commander Jeffries saying that she had heard of me through a mutual friend, Lieutenant General Jay Garner, and Jay had been contacted by them to help start Veterans Moving Forward, but he told him that he was a bit busy, but he says, but I know a guy very well. We served together in the Army, served together in industry, and he's probably not doing anything right now because I heard he just left the administration. So why don't you give Gordon a call? And that's what they did. And we were talking it over, and I was honestly looking for another nonprofit that I could kind of get into outside the norms of the VSOs and all that kind of stuff. And so when they approached me to help get it started, first I thought a business opportunity, but then as they told me what they wanted to do and how they felt it would affect veterans and their families and all that, I just saw me being a part of it, not from a business, but from actually being a member. So as I tell people, much to the chagrins of my bride, when I came home that night and told her, hey, I'm going to work with Veterans Moving Forward, but I'm doing it pro bono, she just kind of went like, okay, here we go. But I said, it'll all work, trust me. And so I did. I helped get it started. We got all the stuff done. People were saying it'd take us a year to a year and a half to get our 501c3. We did it in just under 6 months.
Wow.
We had our act together. So when the IRS called and we went through the briefing and all that, every question that they had, we had either an answer for or a document to show where we'd already got it prepared. Here's our business. Here's our finances. Here's this, that. So we got it done, knocked it out. And like I said, we made our application in early 2010, and by September we had the document back. So it was very rewarding to see that. So I served on the board for about 5 years. Left VMF when I became the commander for the Purple Heart chapter here in Northern Virginia, which is the largest Purple Heart chapter in the Commonwealth, and wanted to build it back up to where we had been before I had to depart it when I was in the administration. I didn't have time to really do anything except work because I traveled a lot with the job. And in 2019, I rolled out of the commander's job. And about that same time, some of the board members from VMF called me. One guy actually called me from London and said, "Hey, we need you to come back, not as a volunteer. We want you to come back full time. We don't need interviews. We know who you are. We need you to come back and get started." So I returned officially 1 October, right before COVID. Good timing. And joined Lori Sittner and Katie Paulson. Lori's our CEO now, and Katie's our head trainer and director of programs. And said, "All right, let's give it 3 months. One, to see if we get along, and two, see if we could start to make a headway and basically restructure. And then if you don't like what I'm doing, or you don't like what we're doing, or the direction we're going, you want to leave, that's fine, but at least give me 3 months." Right. And here we are almost 4 years later.
That's fantastic. How many veterans have you placed dogs with?
Well over 30 something over the years. But like I said, there's such a big need that I wish we could do more. We're right now in the process of designing a new training center, because the one we're in right now is in the middle of an industrial park place, right there on the north side of the Dulles International Airport, where your wife flew in. Yep. And so that area, and it's just building on top of building. We have no maneuver space. I don't even have a back door with grass, so I could just open the door and let the dogs go into a grassy area fenced off, so you can just lay in the sun. Right. I can't leave the dogs there at night. So we have to rely on what we call puppy raisers, which are like foster parents. So they get the dogs at night, take them home, bring the kids back for school the next day, and then they work with them over the weekends. And again, I'm limited to how many dogs I can get, because I may have space for a dog, but if I don't have a puppy raiser, then I can't take the puppy. So again, as soon as we say no to a puppy because of one of those variables, we automatically just said no to a veteran in the future of being able to place that dog. And that's, to me, that's the killer. It's when I have to say no like that. So we're in the process of trying to design a new training center. We got the initial concept done last week. So I've got a height construction is looking at the cost right now to include all. We're looking at some property out in Northern Virginia to place it on about 10 acres at least, so we can have some outdoor training facilities. We'll be able to keep the dogs there, and it'll allow us to expand our capacity. So as we raise more money, we can get more dogs, hire more trainers, and we'll already have the facility there to put them in, and not have to put 8 dogs into a small place. And then, oh my goodness, we got more money, so now we can get more dogs. All right, hang on, we got to build out. Now we can build out and put in as we need it over the next year or so. So very excited. It's a beautiful looking building. Just the concept. So what it actually looks like, we don't know, but what our architect did, Valerie Barnes from VA Space here in DC. And to give you an idea of the support, I'm going to put a plug out for her. She and her husband, Elliot. It's VA Spaces, va-spaces.com. Check them out. Woman-owned architectural design business there in DC. They came out to visit with us because I initially just asked them for a basic black and white square drawing that says, here's what a floor plan would look like, and here's what we want to do in that floor plan. And that's it. Nothing fancy and all that. So they came out for their 30-minute visit, ended up spending about 3 hours at the training center with them sitting at the table in front of Katie, our trainer, and said, look, what do you want? What is your imagination for your, I'd say, perfect training center? Don't worry about money. Just let us know everything that you want and where you want it and how it works and where we can do it. And then they had a couple more meetings. So now it's up to about an 8,000 square foot training facility with a main house that has apartments, so we can put the veterans in there with their caregivers or their spouses, and individual bedrooms and individual baths with a common living and kitchen area. So we don't have to put them in hotels, which is very expensive in our area. So now they can, and we can do training with them there. We can do night training. We can do outdoor obstacle training. They will have a place where they can relax. The dogs can relax when they just needed that break during their training. So it's going to be really, really, really nice. And like I said, they're drawing it on this. And then she went to height and said, we need to do some cost estimates. Would you help us with that? And they said, sure, we'll do all that. And both of them are doing it pro bono for us.
Oh, wow. Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine all this 3D rendering, CAD drawing, color pictures. I mean, they look like it's a real building. I mean, you have to really look to say, oh no, wait a minute, that's just a graphic,
Right.
but it looks real when you get the slides up. And all that work, all her team's work, they're doing everything pro bono. And like I said, Height Construction is doing all the cost variance and everything pro bono. I mean, that's thousands of dollars that we're not paying for. So that's that's just a great example of the support we get.
Yeah, that's incredible. Especially where you're headquartered. Nothing is cheap. Everything's 20% more expensive there than it is anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really incredible. That's fantastic.
Yep, it really is. So, like I said, thanks to Valerie, thanks to Elliot Barnes and VA-Space and what they're doing for us. Height Construction, looking forward to getting that done. And again, thanks to Height Construction. I just couldn't be more pleased with those kind of partners. And then we're hoping there's a foundation or two out there that we've been talking with, and they're interested in funding the project as well. So they're just waiting on me to come in and say, here it is. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it'll be able to do. And here's how much it's going to cost. And here's where we're going to plant the flag. And then they'll go back and say, okay, well, we can afford all of it or half of it or whatever.
Wow, that's really exciting stuff.
It is. It's very exciting. So
that's great. So this whole podcast started from the idea of exploring personal resilience and fortitude, and just talking to people who have dealt with or are dealing with hard things. And it could anything from a physical challenge to post-traumatic stress to whatever it may be. And obviously now we've evolved to talking to folks who are helping others who are going through hard things. What are you seeing? What kind of benefits are you seeing for these veterans when they pair them with the dogs?
Oh, it's life-changing. I tell people we're not just changing the lives of these veterans, we're saving their lives every day nationwide. And the stories that we get back, either them talking to us in person, sending us an email, or writing a letter over the years about what that dog has done for them and their family, is just mind-blowing. And I'll give you a couple examples. One veteran, a guy my age, we gave a dog to about 1.5 years ago. He had tried to commit suicide 3 times. Fortunately, though he's not a Purple Heart Medal recipient himself, he worked with the Purple Heart chapter here in Williamsburg, Virginia, who's the commander of that chapter is also one of my good friends, for a long time friend, fellow Army aviator. And he kept telling this veteran, you need to go see Gordon, at least talk to him, let him talk to you about his service dog program. Maybe he can help, maybe not, but what have you got to lose? At least try it. So we hooked up a visit for him to come. His name's Doc. So Katie and I are sitting there in the training center. We got these 2 double doors and windows, so we could see right out the front towards the parking area. And we see this car go back and forth. And well, it's got to be Doc. And you could say, I think part of it is he's trying to find us in the middle of this building. But second, I think it was a little apprehension.
Yeah.
He finally pulls in and parked right there in front of the door. Doesn't get right out. He sits there for a minute. Finally, he gets out of the car. He has a cane. He's slumped over, and he's just shuffling in the door with the sad sack, woe is me attitude. So we got him in. We welcomed him. We gave him a cup of coffee. And that's when we introduced him to the dog that we had hoped would be his battle buddy, Zamp. And even those first few minutes of Zamp sitting at his feet and allowing him just to pet him while we were talking, you could see a smile start to come on. You could see him kind of sit up a little bit. You could see that change in his demeanor literally instantaneously as soon as Zamp was there by him. And then Zamp got comfortable with him and rolled over on his back. Let Doc give him belly rubs and all that. So now these two are bonding a little bit. And Katie, then I ease myself out and I let Katie then talk to him about his special needs. Because the one thing I've done since I've been before and back as president is I stay out of the medical side.
Right.
I'm not signed up with the HIPAA stuff. I don't sit in on our medical review boards, which I could explain about later, which makes us different. I don't go into the veterans files. The only thing that I see of a veteran's file is his DD-214, because I'm the military guy. And so a lot of times Katie will hand me the DD-214 and say, can you explain what does this mean? Where's this? Other than that, I don't see anything. And I like it that way because, one, it's not my business. I believe in the need to know. And second, I don't want anybody anywhere coming back saying, well, you gave Brian a service dog because he's one of your friends or he's one of your Army buddies or something like that. He's dealing with something that you thought was worse than what this guy. Nobody can say that because I don't know what Brian's applying for until later on in the application when we're starting to do that. Then I find out, here's how we're helping that veteran. So we did that. So fast forward, 6 to 8 months of training with ZAMP. They finally graduate. We do have graduation ceremonies, by the way, with dog treats, a dog cake and a human treats and, stuff like that. The puppy raisers get a chance to speak about what it was like for them to help raise the dog. If we have a sponsor for the dog, they get to talk about why they support VMF. And it's a big deal. I mean, we have a lot of people there, board members, etc. So there's a large group, a lot of food. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Outside of the dog graduation. And once he finished with that, he decided to come back and visit right after it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so thankful that Jim takes care of his car, because this time he comes flying into the parking lot and like screech, halt right in front of the door. Doors fly open. He hops out. Zamp hops out on the other side. He hooks him up, and they come bouncing into the training center. He has now got a red golf shirt with a sewn on VMF patch.
Mm-hmm.
And what else has he got? I mean, he's got like all kinds of stuff. So he literally matches Zamp's service dog vest in color, patchwork, and everything. They look like the Bobsey twins coming in. And he walks in and he's standing around, he's talking and shaking hands. And after a couple of minutes, he stops and he looks around like this and he goes, oh, I forgot my cane. So he didn't even need it. He was just so happy to be there. But I guess the best part with Doc's story is that sometime later, I got a letter from him and he said, hey, I just want you to know everything's going great. It was a rough year for me last year. I had major surgeries. He sent a picture of him laying in the hospital bed with Zamp. The nurses let Zamp lay in the bed with them. So here's this big Labrador retriever laying in the bed with Jim, like side by side with him. And he said, I lost my dad during the year. He said, so it was really rough. He said, but I honestly have to say that not once did I think about suicide, let alone committing suicide. And the reason is because I have Zamp with me.
Yeah. Aside from all the science that proves how beneficial this is, personally, dogs are just magic to me. There is nothing that can match the bond and the relationship between a human and a dog when they do match up well like that, and that's even untrained. We've always shared our home with dogs. This is the first time as a couple we don't, just simply because of where we are and the logistics of it. Yeah, none of the story. We can listen to these stories all day long because every single one is unique and special and magical and perfect.
I'll tell you one real quick, a short abbreviated. So last December, we placed a service dog with a Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. This guy not only wouldn't want to get out of his house, but he has a long driveway, and at the end of the driveway is the school bus stop. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't walk with his two daughters down his driveway to stand there with them at the end of his driveway to get on the bus. He would put them in his car and drive the car down and make them sit in the car at the end of the driveway. Then they could get out of the car and get on the bus, and then he'd drive back, but he wouldn't get out. So he got a service dog, Gil, and a little while later, we get this picture email, and it shows Gil, and it shows the vet. This is the back. They're walking. So here's Gil, here's the veteran, here's the two daughters, and they're walking together down towards the bus stop.
Yeah.
So like I said, I got a bunch of them. We've got a veteran in Montana with, in fact, Ashley. If I happen to have Ashley's card. So there's Ashley. So she's with her veteran, a Marine in Montana. He wouldn't get out of the house to go watch his kid play sport.
Mm-hmm.
Now he sits in the bleachers and watches his son play football this last fall. Literally within 2 months of having Ashley, he's in the bleachers watching his son play football and watching his daughter play soccer.
Wow, that's just incredible. That's such a fundamental life change.
Yep.
And it sounds so small, but it's not. It's huge. It's humongous. It's world changing.
Yeah, and all of our dogs are named after veterans. 90% of them are named after a veteran who was killed in combat and during one of our conflicts in the nation's history. So it's a great way that we can honor and remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. So, for example, Ashley, that I mentioned right here, Ashley is named after Army First Lieutenant Ashley White, who was the first female that was assigned to a Special Forces operations group over in Afghanistan. And she felt it was important to be part of that group so that she could provide the female connection to the tribes out there. And unfortunately, she was killed along with her two soldiers in their Humvee with an IED. So it's just a great way that we can remember and honor these soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. You see on the wrist, I wear a memorial bracelet for a Marine that I lost in Iraq. And I don't remember who said it, but the old quote, we die two deaths, one when our body dies and one when our name is spoken for the last time. So
Yep.
anything done to honor and remember and keep the memory of these people alive is icing on the cake to me. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's just amazing. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and I want to hear about the application process and the medical and everything else.
Will do. Looking forward to it.
All right. So welcome back. And you alluded to you said you'd talk about medical screening and how the process works when a veteran comes to you.
Right. So what happens, and as I mentioned earlier, what makes us a little different than others is we're not like a Walmart where we have dogs on a shelf.
Right.
Where a veteran walks in the front door and says, "Hi, I think I need a service dog. You got one." It doesn't work that way. And the reason is because in order to be a service dog, you have to be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. And if you read the fine print, a service dog is specifically trained to meet a very specific need of a very specific individual. And what that means is a service dog is trained to help Brian with a very specific need that he's having to deal with. It could be a mental issue, it could be an emotional issue, it could be a physical issue. So if you need mobility assistance, so you're having trouble equilibrium, so we work with the dog, put a harness on the dog so that way you can hold the dog. If you need stability, if you're having nightmares, we work with the dog to combat the nightmares. If you have to take medicines every day at a certain time, believe it or not, these dogs learn that at 9 o'clock, they go fetch your medicine and bring it to you.
I believe it.
Yeah. And also we teach them how to get water out of a refrigerator. So they'll bring you the water bottle, which is, I always tell people the nice thing about our dogs is unlike kids, we teach the dogs how to close the refrigerator door as well. So they do that. We've actually had a story where a veteran was on a Zoom call or something, and his time came for his meds. So his dog went and got the meds and brought it to him, and he kind of took the meds and kind of pushed it to the side. Like if I were sitting here talking to you, and all of a sudden Vincent over here that I just showed you, if he brought me my medicine and I just kind of put it aside, so the dog pushed it back to him, and you could see on the screen this dog head kind of come up like this and like push the medicines over until finally the veteran went, "Okay, folks, I'm sorry, timeout. I need to take my medicine or he's not going to leave me alone." So that's what they do. So we teach those skill sets to these dogs that are focused purely on that veteran.
Right.
And then, so what happens is the veteran makes their application. They do it online at our website, which I understand you're going to share with your listeners later, which thank you for that. So you go onto our website, you make your application, fill it out online, hit the send button. And for you veterans out there, that'll start the process. Then we will come back to you and we'll ask for additional information, like I mentioned earlier, to show your honorable discharge, things like that. We do home visits. We check your finances. We want to make sure that you're both physically as well as financially able to maintain the dog. We do help some if we can, but the onus, especially for those veterans that are way outside of our circle here in Virginia, is we want to make sure that you're going to be able to take care of that dog.
Sure.
So, because I mean, imagine you're a human adopting a human in our kid adoption program, and all the stuff that you go through. We're not much different than that, because you're still being given a life form that's totally dependent on you, the veteran, as you are now in your new battle buddy.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is your documentation that comes through in that second requirements of paperwork, which shows your medicines, what care you're under, what are you dealing with, et cetera, that goes to our medical review board. They're all HIPAA certified. That board is made up of board certified psychiatrists, psychologists. I've got a PhD on the board that is a specialist in human behavior, works at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Dr. Shulkin, former secretary of the VA, I think he's the ninth secretary, something like that. He comes in every now and then and helps us if we need him. We've got nurses, practitioners, half the board are veterans themselves as well. So they do a thorough review of all these records, all the medical records, and it pays off, because even though we tell the veteran, look, if you got a mental challenge, that's fine. We want to help it. We don't care. There's no stigma. I mean, we're all banged up. I'm banged up. So we just plow through that. So let us help you. Don't try to hide it. But I know you'll find this hard to believe, Brian, but we do have veterans, when they put in their paperwork, they don't say that they're doing mental stuff. But when you look at the medicines, our medical review board, who understand medicine, they go, oh, wait a minute. See, Brian's saying, no, I'm just getting here for whatever. But look at these medicines that he's taking. Maybe we ought to go back and ask him who his primary mental health care provider is issuing these prescriptions. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And then now we kind of broke that wall down, and now we can help that veteran. So that's what makes us different, is that medical review board. It's a key piece in the process. And they actually, a couple of the members of the medical review board actually do the interview as well with the veteran. I mean, it's not just paperwork. They actually sit down and talk with the veteran there in the training center.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And I love the amount of detail and depth that goes into it, because as a population, veterans, we are probably the worst in the world at admitting we need help and owning up to any issues at all, let alone all of them all at once. So yeah, that's being a pretty unique challenge as you go through the process.
Well, I mean, our culture is that we're strong. We got this. We can do this. As long as I got my battle buddy, so I got Brian next to me here, I'm good.
Right.
And so the two things we don't do, we don't talk about ourselves that much. We definitely don't talk much about our combat experiences. It's just something that we do, unless you and I are sharing our stories together, maybe at a Purple Heart meeting or something like that, where we just want somebody that we feel we can talk to and share. And this medal right here opens up a lot of doors for these young kids when they come in and they feel that they need to talk to somebody. Yeah. Well, there's your key right there, because all of us that wear this, we've been there, done it, and got the T-shirt, so to speak. Yeah. So when our kids come through and adults come through that door and they see this, I think that breaks down a lot of those mental barriers that they built up in their angst of coming to start with. That I think that kind of, I believe it helps put them a little bit at ease. Yeah. That now I'm talking to somebody who's also been there at least once. I've been there 4 times, but at least once. So
yeah, and I'm sure that helps and helps to get at least set the conditions necessary to start opening up and start sharing and admitting. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Can I ask kind of a hard question? that's been on my mind since I started exploring this idea of pairing service dogs with veterans.
Mm-hmm.
As a dog lover myself, I know, and we were talking offline, and I've mentioned I've shared my home with dogs for most of my life. Part of the bargain when you bring a dog into your home is you acknowledge the shorter lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have veterans who bond very closely with and very deeply need these dogs, and they begin to approach their elderly years, do you have anything in place for that?
Well, we do talk with the veterans as much as we can. Our direct connection with the veteran is for 2 to 3 years because they actually have a contract. So they sign this contract that's very specific about what their requirements are, with some monthly reports, updates on the dog, update on the training, update on their physical health. If they've had to go to a veterinarian that we've hooked them up with wherever they live, then we check in to see how they're doing, if they've, their annual shots, all that kind of stuff. And we also ask them to at least participate in 2 to 3 events, fundraisers, speaking engagements. Like the guy in Montana, he can't obviously come here and be part of a fundraiser here in Loudoun County, but he could maybe hold something out there, or if nothing else, go talk to the Rotary Club about veterans moving forward there in his town there in Montana. So those are the things we ask them to do. But as these dogs now get past that 2 to 3 year, then the contract is over. It's really their dog to start with, but now it's officially their dog to stay for the rest of their life. And we've actually been around now long enough that some of these dogs that we placed years ago are starting to age out due to health things or the fact they're just old and they just can't perform.
Right.
So we've already replaced 2 dogs with the veteran because they're still relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're now on to their second service dog with us.
So they basically have to begin the process anew.
Yeah, what we do is we're training the dogs coming through, but we already know what the veteran needs, so that kind of cuts that short a little bit because we already know, like our veteran that's out in California, when his dog Jug got to where he timed out, we already knew Harry, which happened to be Zamp's brother,
Mm-hmm.
the one with the guy that tried to commit suicide. So we already knew Harry's kind of aptitudes, so it made a natural fit to be placed with this guy. And so we just trained Harry on those specific tasks. And I mean, it was like glue when we put the 2 together.
Yeah.
And same thing with the veteran, female Air Force veteran up in Maryland. Her dog, which by the way, I showed you the Vincent here on the floor with me. His brother Prince has been her service dog. Well, they're not that old, but get this, Prince has dementia. I didn't know a dog could get dementia.
Yeah.
So he has got a severe case of dementia. So
Oh.
he's basically just a shell of a dog that acts like a dog, has no idea what day of the week it is. So we're working with her, getting her a new dog as well. Even though it's early in their lifespan, Prince isn't able to function as a service dog because this dementia is just eating him up. So we're working with her now.
So if I'm a veteran and my primary care or my primary mental care physician says you should look into getting a dog,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do?
Go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
make the application, submit it, and then
Yeah.
we'll contact you back after we review the records and say, okay, let's set up an interview. And we start talking to you. And that's when we say, okay, here's some more things that you need to provide us. We need your DD-214. We need your primary care provider documentations. We need this second form, which is very lengthy form, filled out and resubmit back to us, all that kind of stuff. And what's really sad is the veterans, not a lot, but enough that it's a concern, is that they will submit that application and then we reach back out to them and say, okay, here's what we need. And then it's crickets.
Yeah.
We don't hear from them, or we'll only get part of the stuff, or we'll get halfway into that, or we'll get through the medical review board and then they start to disappear. I mean, we had one veteran that we were literally within a month of graduation with a dog, and he just fell off the end of the earth.
Yeah.
Just decided I've changed my mind. And here we've taken all this time to train this dog up for him. Now we're retraining to put with another veteran, which we did, last week, a couple of weeks ago. But, this dog was ready to be placed months ago.
Yeah. How long is the training program for the dog and then the pair?
It's 2 years.
Mhm.
We get the dogs at 8 weeks. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll see if I can pull him up real quick. But we get the puppies at 8 weeks old, and then we train them for around 24 months.
Mhm.
So see if this will work or not.
Yep, I can see him. Oh, hey, buddy.
So that's our new guy. That's Stan. And Stan comes in as Jacob graduated 2 weeks ago. So Jacob graduated on Sunday, and Stan paraded into the training center on Monday morning. And they're all cute, but I mean, he's just a little bundle of fur walking across the grass out there. So he's just starting.
So 2 years with the dog, and then once they're paired with the veteran, you mentioned apartments so they could stay there. I presume you spent some time training the veteran on how to interact with the dog. How long does that take?
So we started to marry the veteran with the dog around 18 months.
Okay.
So it runs around 6 months. And what we do is, like I mentioned with Doc, we got him in, we had Zamp identified, and just let him sit there at the chair and in our what we call the living room laboratory. So we have a living room set up so we can work with the veteran. So if I'm in my chair like this and I go to sleep and I have a nightmare, we teach the dogs how to help me if I'm in my chair versus in my bed, which is next to it. So that little bit of interaction for an hour or so, and then a little bit more, then all day, then all weekend, and then 3 or 4 days. So that whole thing starts, I call it the mating dance, and it just kind of grows until we run what I call like the Marine Corps crucible. So it's a 2 to 3 week, every day, weekend, straight through training, because we have to train the veteran. They have to know how to do the tasks. They have to know how to walk the dog. We have veterans that never had a dog, unlike you and I who grew up with dogs.
Right.
They've never really had that opportunity. So we teach them how to groom the dog, trim toenails, which side do you want the dog to walk on?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you need help? Like Doc, he always liked to have his cane in his right hand. So we taught Zamp how to walk always on his left-hand side. One veteran who lost both legs in Afghanistan, he's in a wheelchair. So we had to teach the dog which side of the wheelchair he should walk on, those kind of things. But it's a little bit at a time until they finally get it all together.
Right. Okay. And presumably, if I go to your website, I'll see a means by which to donate.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody watching, definitely check that out. What other types of support do you need?
For those that are in our area, especially, we live by volunteers. As I mentioned, there's only 4 of us on staff: myself, the president and CEO, the COO, director of programs, head trainer, and our assistant trainer. Everything else we do in the office, in the organization, is done by volunteers. I can't say enough about what a fantastic group of volunteers we have. I love every one of them. They do things above and beyond the call of duty, if there ever was an example. And these ladies, guys, kids, we have a lot of teenagers that come in and volunteer to get their civic hours during their school year, coming in and cleaning the kennels, cleaning up the training area, walking the dogs. Katie gets out and teaches them how to walk dogs so they can come out, take the dogs out to do their business, so we don't have to stop training for the trainers or me to have to stop a Zoom call to go take a dog out. They can just grab the dog and go. And to give you an idea how much they do, so our volunteers have an online volunteer management system that they can go in and say, okay, I just spent 1 hour on a Zoom call talking about veterans moving forward, so I just volunteered my time, and click, I'm done. And anytime they do something, they can do that. Now, you and I both know that volunteers like to volunteer because that's what they want to do, but they don't really care about the paperwork side of the house. But we encourage them to tell their story so that I can go back to the board and I can put it on my IRS form 990 for potential donors to look at, not only our finances, but how much help are you getting? Because that tells a story just in itself. So, for example, our 50 plus volunteers in 2021 volunteered over 15,500 hours.
Wow.
And I thought, holy mackerel, that's got to be crazy, because that's just coming out of COVID. Even during COVID, they volunteered thousands of hours. But that's crazy. Well, guess what? 2022, over 22,000 volunteer hours. That's what they physically logged. So you and I know there's probably a lot more hours that they just didn't, they came home from a fundraiser. They'd been outside in the tent for 4 hours. All they wanted to do was come home and make a gin and tonic and prop their feet up. And so they never went into the system and logged those 4 hours. So I know that happens, but the fact that I've got in the system and on our IRS form 990 and our board report, over 22,000 volunteer hours. That's like 8 to 10 full-time people that I didn't have to fundraise to pay salaries for them to do what these great volunteers did. It's awesome.
That is wonderful.
So we must be doing something right. If I've got volunteers that'll take time that they could be doing something else. They could stay at home. They could be volunteering for their local clubs, the church, synagogue, wherever. But they're saying, no, I'm going to go with Veterans Moving Forward. I'm going to spend my time this weekend because I believe in what they're doing to support our veterans of our country.
Yeah. And I feel like this gets more important every day we get further away from the drawdowns in Afghanistan and Iraq. It feels like as a nation, the focus on supporting veterans and the troops is shifting to the news of the day, and it's a natural phenomenon. But organizations like yours keeping that in the forefront of people's minds and reminding them how many people are walking among them who have served and still need help and still deserve our thanks and our full measure of support. So that's great to hear that you've got that much volunteer support.
Well, I appreciate it. And Brian, don't sell yourself short either, because having opportunities to come on podcasts like this with you and be able to share our story nationwide, worldwide, to let people know what we're doing. But because of individuals like you and fellow veterans like you that have these kind of shows, we're able to do that. And so I applaud you. I thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this show today. I'm having a ball. I think you could tell.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this I'm really glad that we're taking this direction as well, and expanding the scope to talk to as many people as we can about everything about resiliency, and the fact that it's helping veterans is just a bonus to me. So thank you for the kind words, but more than that, thank you for what you're doing. On behalf of all veterans and dog lovers both. Because really, and you alluded to it, your desire to keep serving and find fulfillment in service. And they're the two happiest creatures I think you'll ever see on the planet are a person geared to service, wearing the uniform or still serving their community, and a dog with a job. Dogs with a purpose. You can see it. They know that they have a purpose and they're fulfilling it, and they're getting fulfillment and satisfaction from that just as we are.
Absolutely. And a lot of people ask us, well, why do you only use Labrador retrievers? And we have worked with a variety of dogs over the 12 plus years, from standard poodles to German shepherds. I showed you Vince. He's a golden retriever. But over the last 4 or 5 years, these Labrador retrievers have really, really stepped up, both physically and mentally, to meet the requirements of what our veterans today need. They're a healthy breed, but what really makes them stand out is if you look at the history of the Labrador retrievers, they were specifically trained over the years, hundreds of years, to serve mankind.
Yeah.
So these dogs are inbred to focus on people. Yeah. And so their ability to do that comes naturally. It's a little bit about, this is what I want to do. I'm happy with my human, but there's that gene in there that says, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Right. And now how do I expand? Instead of just being with the human, how can I help the human? And that's what we do, is expand that gene pool a little bit bigger in with the dog. So
I've shared my home with multiple Labradors, so I'm very well aware of how easily and how deeply they connect with people. And yeah, that desire to coexist with and serve and support is very obvious.
Yep. And like I said, it's a great way that we can honor those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. When you get one of our doggy cards that looks kind of like this, so this shows Shelgrave, for example, which is Gaelic for hunter. Yep. That's his puppy picture, and that's his picture now. He's about 115 pounds. He's actually one of our ambassador dogs, and he keeps me company in the office with that big head. So a little bit about him, where he comes from. And then on the back, there's the information about us. So people can make donations. We also have a Venmo code as well. So you can Venmo us. It's easy. And then, like I said, all the information on how to donate. I ask listeners to consider becoming a monthly donor. And I'll give you a quick example. I don't know how much time we've got left, but I believe in the power of small numbers. Okay. So we're about a $30,000 to $33,000 a month operating cost, nonprofit. So I don't know how many listeners you've got right now, but here's your call of action to all your great listeners out there in Radio Land. If 750 of you, just 750, do this, 50% of you donate starting today, $10 a month on our website, $10 a month. That's all. Half of that 750, you do that. That other 50%, 25% of you donate $50 a month. You do that. The other 25%, you or your company, y'all donate $100 a month. And you know what you 750 call to action listeners will be doing, becoming true believers of Veterans Moving Forward? You just covered our operating expenses each month. Wow. That's how to do it. Would I take somebody walking in the door saying, look, I'll pledge $30,000 a month for the next 2 years. Here you go. Fantastic. I'd never say no. But at the same time, I want to educate more and more people. So now I've got one true believer doing that. Now I've got 750 people that now they can tell all their friends, hey, I'm doing $10 a month. And I believe in this. How about you can do this? I mean, it's a Starbucks coffee.
Yeah, there it is. 2 lattes a month.
Yeah. Get rid of the caffeine, get rid of, kind of treat your body well, help us at the same time by donating $10 a month, that half of the 750, you other 550 and 100 guys. I mean, that can be businesses, that could be anybody else. And you have no idea how much of a game changer. For those of you out there that donate to the other major nonprofits, I call them like the big boys, Wounded Warrior, USO, Gary Sinise, all those, great. I'm asking you, don't stop donating. I know all the leaders. I served with some of them in the military. Great organizations doing great things for veterans. What I am asking you to do, and this goes to your corporate listeners, they have 7, 8 figures in the bank right now. Yeah. They're multi-million-dollar organizations. When you donate to them, those dollars get put into that pool. And if you call them up and say, hey, I just donated $1,000, or I'm pledging $1,000 a month, or I'm donating $10,000 or $50,000, they can't tell you where that dollar went. They can tell you it's going in the pool, and here's some of the things that they're supporting.
Our programs, yeah.
You do that to us because we're around 400,000 or so a year placing these service dogs. You do that to us, you can be a game changer again, literally overnight. So for you guys and gals that are donating large lumps, $500,000, $1 million to those folks, keep doing it. But how about this time, instead of writing that $500,000 check, write $400,000 and donate the other $100,000 to us. Yeah. So the $1 million, how about $700,000 or $800,000 to them, the other $2,000 or $3,000 to us? Those two donations right there covers our operating expenses for all of 2024. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, how that can be a game changer and really make a difference on what we're doing with these veterans and their families. And also it's a trifecta, because it's not just the veterans and their families, it's the communities, because now they're getting out. As I used an example about the Marine out in Montana who's watching the soccer game with his daughter, watching the football game now in the stadiums, in the stands of his high school. He's now driving, so he's buying gas.
Yeah.
He's buying a hot dog at the concession stand. So he's helping the school PTO. So, I mean, all those little things that people don't think about, they think, oh, well, the veteran's getting a service dog, so the veteran's getting better with their issues, whatever it may be. No, it's not that. It's the family now is unified. They're out in the community. They're buying things. They're paying gas. They're buying food. They're back in the church. They're going back to school. So it's a lot of things that's going on like that. That is also a great note to have.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. And it makes almost too much sense to ignore. Yeah. Started.
So just go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Go to the website, hit, it's our website and it says, how can I help donate? But the website is /donate. And it's already set up. So you just do like one and done, and then you can forget about it, go do your weekend chores and know that you're helping us help veterans, saving lives.
Absolutely. Do you have any events coming up locally?
We've got a lot locally here in Loudoun County. I'll actually be at the National Museum of the United States Army on Sunday with an information table for coffee cars and camo. Okay. So the Disabled Veterans Foundation will be setting up with some cars and old cars, young cars. I know there's going to be a couple of Corvettes out there, things like that. Yeah. So they're a big sponsor of us. So I'll be there with an information table. We've got fundraisers at a variety of wineries, breweries, speaking engagements. So yeah, it's almost this time of the year, and then we'll kind of break it up as we get into the summer because it gets too hot sometimes to have the dogs out for a long amount of time. But we'll be doing that, and then around September we start kicking it back in, and it's literally 7 days a week up until the first part of December, before we start to kind of wind it down for the holidays. So yeah, any opportunity we can to talk, to share stories, to do a fundraising, to really to bring awareness to our, not just the Commonwealth of Virginia where we're located, but across the country, like doing great podcasts with great folks like you, that this allows us to share our story and get the word out. Because you're not going to donate if you don't know about us.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
So that's why outreach for us is so important and such an integral part of our program, so that people understand who we are, what it is that we do, but more importantly, the why.
Yeah.
Like any business, you know what you're doing, you know how to do it. But the question I always ask people, especially working with volunteers and working with nonprofits when I had my consulting thing going, is the why question. Why are you doing it? Yeah. Like my volunteers, why are you working with us versus somebody else this weekend? Why are you out in the sun? Why are you at the rugby game in a tent, supporting us, when you could be doing something else? You'd be sitting at home watching golf on TV or something. But nope, you're out in the sun, you're supporting us. So it's that why is the very important piece of it. And that's why I'm so thrilled to have the support that we do, because people get it. They get the why.
Yeah, very much so. It definitely speaks for itself. And more so, your passion for it speaks. Gordon, thank you very much for the time. I'm really excited to get this together and out and get you and your organization out there to as many people as we can. If you're watching this, if you're seeing it, whatever your means are, whatever level you're at, consider these folks. They're doing amazing things for people who really need and deserve it, and for dogs who really need and deserve it. And that's the ultimate pairing. Gordon, thanks very much. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for doing what you do
Thanks, Ryan.
For fellow veterans.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for sharing your information. And for all you listeners, be sure to share the podcast with your social media as well, because the more we can get the word out, the more we can do. Because as we're saying, together, we're going to give these veterans a new leash on life.
I love it. Thanks, Gordon.
Thanks, Brian. Bye-bye.
Bye now.